Really, he walked around the corner when I said. "31, I'll call the meeting to order. Let's start with roll call.
Mark Evans.
Marissa Roberts. Cynthia Cochran. Kara Riley.
Emily.
All right, and stand for the, where is the flag today? There it is.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Pardon me for 1 second while I get this stuff pulled up. What's first? District update. District update, okay. For February. Okay. Might as well do February and March.
We can, sure. It's kind of, March is the most recent, so we can, let's do the student of the month and I'll do February, March together for district.
Okay.
So elementary, if you want to come up and talk about your students of the month and your employee of the month, then we'll follow in high school.
Our students have month is like 30 or 40 a month, so we usually just have those listed. So I have one of my teachers of the month here for January. Our teacher of the month was Miss Bethany Sparks. She is a second grade teacher. She couldn't be here today, but she was nominated because the person who nominated her said she's an incredible educator who not only teaches her students, but truly nurtures them. She's always eager to improve. She asks questions, embraces feedback with a positive mindset, and continuously seeks ways to better support her students. So she is one of our wonderful teachers of the month for January. And then for February, we have Miss Barb Lamp, who is our teacher of the month. And the person who nominated her said she consistently goes above and beyond to support our team. Not only does she make sure our team is on task, she helps take care of another class at the same time. She was helping our long-term sub for Miss Velasquez. And then it says she is always on top of what we need to get done and helps us along the way. And I don't know how she finds the time. So Miss Barb Lamp. And then we did have we had a staff member, kind of a staff member, contracted staff member. Emily Seiler, she is our OT at the school, and she is a different level of magic with kids. We'll have kids that are having a really difficult time, and some days at work, I work for them, some days it's Dr. McGar, and some days we don't work for those kids, but every single day, Emily works for every single one of those kids, and I don't know what she does, but she's magical with our students, and she's always jumping in. If she doesn't have an appointment with a kid, she is there helping and talking to kids, and she's got great relationships. So, but she was not able to be here today either. Okay. But Barb is our big one that's here.
Do high school and then stand up and do all the photos,
Sure.
or do one at a time?
Well, for January, our high school staff of the month was Miss Price. Decision voted by the staff, everything. That's literally the best way you could say it is everything. So, and I'll let her announce March's or February's.
So for February, our employee of the month or our teacher of the month was Thomas Free. And so Mr. Free is just a tremendous teacher. He's a math teacher. And I think the main quote about him from other teachers is something to the effect of that I thought was really cool is, I always think about going and chasing kids down in the commons in the morning and get them to redo things, and he actually does it. So he will be down here chasing kids down and saying, hey, redo number 10. I know you know how to do that. And he just goes that extra mile. Every time I walk in his classroom, he is working hard. He's individualizing instruction for students. And so he's just a tremendous asset to us as a math teacher. Very proud of his work. He could not be here today. However, his mom is sick. So he is with her in the evenings right now. So, yep.
Let's take some photos. Susan, I guess you can get your frame. There we go. Susan has the frame, so like a frame.
Outside there.
Sure.
Here, you guys get in the middle.
There we go.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Most recent, if we want to continue on, our most recent enrollment and staff changes are in our March. And so if we want to look, we can look at both, but our most recent is March. Right now, we are continuing accepting lottery and increasing our school tours. I talked to the principals today and they've had lots of tours happening. And so school tours are happening. The lottery Pam is managing through the acceptances, reaching out to the ones that haven't accepted yet. And we continue to add to our enrollment. So right now, our projection is we're going to be over where we are right now, which is ideal. Hopefully, we continue to work on that throughout the year, well, rest of the year until August.
Have we finished our pre-K enrollment?
We exceeded we had a wait list with pre-K, so they're all accepted and ready to go. And we'll continue to kind of have meetings throughout until school starts to kind of get them prepared and ready and all those things. And then financials, Adrian's not here, but we did submit the financials to her. And we do not have any problems. We continue to manage our budget as it is. And the staff changes, I guess we'd have to go back to February because we didn't have any in March. So we've had replacements come in. No one has left. So we've just hired some replacements to fill in spots that we had vacancies in. And thank you, Michael, for following right along.
You're welcome.
Is this a good time to let John do
It's a perfect time.
the audit?
It's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Riley, how are you?
Good.
I'm John Evans with Landmark CPAs, and we performed the annual audit of the school. And so I'm here to share the results of the audit with you. It'll be short and brief, so. But there's actually, and let me just say that the report's stamped preliminary right now, awaiting your approval. And then that's the only thing left to finalize it and get it submitted. So there's actually 4 audit reports included in the whole packet. The first one's on the financial statements themselves. And the financial statements are, as required by state law, presented on a regulatory basis, which is different from generally accepted accounting principles. But it's a clean, unqualified opinion on the financial statements on a regulatory basis. The second audit report is because obviously you receive government funds, is required by government accounting standards or government auditing standards. And it's a report on internal control over financial reporting in non-compliance with laws and regulations. And pleased to report there were no deficiencies or material weaknesses that we were required to report in that area. The third report, because you received, it used to be $750,000 of federal funds, and now it's been changed to $1 million federal funds. We're required to do another kind of special audit on what we determined to be a major program. This year we looked at the special ed cluster and also Title I, and there were no deficiencies in that area, no findings. Last year there was in last year's audit report, there was a finding related to the food program, which has been remedied. And as we're required to follow up on that in the current year's audit report. So we note that it's been taken care of and things are good in that area. So then the last report is on compliance with Arkansas state law. and all the state requirements that we tested, you were in compliance with. So good, clean audit report this year. So, you know, the staff, you know, Dr. Roberts and her staff, you know, should be commended for doing a good job, you know, as far as all the audit requirements.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'd be glad to, if you got any questions or,
Do we need to sign anything, approve anything to approve it?
Sure.
Okay.
I move to accept the Austin financial review.
You get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
there will be, Dr. Roberts, a management representation letter that, you know, for you to sign.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then that'll be the final step.
And thank you for being here.
Oh, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have, lost my thing, there it is, okay. Do we need to approve the financials?
And approve the January minutes, and we'll go into February and March.
Okay. I guess we have to do them all separately.
Yes.
Okay, so, can I get a motion to approve the January minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Is there anything to discuss on the February or March ones? No?
No, we'll discuss the new business, and then we'll discuss March new business, so.
Okay, so we just need to approve the February minutes. Can I get a
Yes.
motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, all approved, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, next.
February minutes. We didn't have February.
Oh, that's true.
February financials.
Financial, sorry.
That's okay.
There you go. We're good.
That's perfect.
First and seconded.
First and second.
I'll go into February new business, and, then I'll go into March if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
Included in the report is a review of our sort of financial status from the group Afton. So if you remember, we talked about how the Charter Seed Growth Fund put us in touch with this third-party evaluator that really looked at our financials, not only our school audit, but just all of our day-to-day budget and our operations and all of that stuff. They went through and really did a very thorough sweep. They interviewed myself, they interviewed Renee, they interviewed Adrian, and they provided sort of a feedback report. We went through that feedback report with them, which I found very helpful because I thought they did a pretty accurate job on identifying some areas that we needed growth in. One of which is we knew we needed sort of another layer of oversight in the admin office for Renee not to be the only one. So she prepares the budget, she does the finances, but we needed sort of another layer to that. So that really has fit into the scope of how we're rearranging the admin office job responsibilities and job duties. So Terry Harrell is resigning, and at that point, Renee will move into HR. It's something that she has wanted to do and very familiar with it. She'll manage payroll, she'll do all of those things. But as Afton has said, we need almost like a CFO type vendor type person, not necessarily full-time, but some person, some contract that's in that role, evaluating strategic plans, data trends, forecasting. So through this process of going through this, they also looked at, what's our capacity, what's our financial footprint, what's the board's contributions, things like that, our financial strengths and risks. So it was a pretty thorough evaluation. We provided this to our point of contact with Charter Seed Growth. And because of that, they're going to help us make some connections with a contract that can help us with that oversight, that financial oversight, and actually they're going to pay for it. So what we'll do is we'll kind of get some of their names and recommendations. We'll go through them. And we meet with one of the people tomorrow as who might want a contract and just kind of do an oversight, trend and forecasting. So as we spend every month, it will lay into a forecast of how we're lined up towards the end of the year and into what carryover will be for next year. So that's a very generous offer that we're really excited to see that they would pay for that. And even if it's in the short term, 6 months, 8 months, it will give us a capacity to know what we would need in that position had we had the ability to hire someone. So we'll be able to learn a lot, but also know what that job role looks like for us internally. Any questions about Afton? The great thing about this being a part of the charter seat cohort is it continues to be this amazing gift that keeps on giving. I mean, the connections they're connecting us with and best practices and the support network that they're allowing us to enter into is tremendous. And we're learning a lot and we're making some really good changes based on some of the recommendations. So I was at a convening last week, Wednesday through Friday, and it was all on marketing, advocacy, policy changes, and messaging, and communication too. And so it was all of the charter networks sent someone who does that majority of that work. And we came back really, or I came back really very focused on what we need to do to increase our viability in all of those areas. And so they've also asked me to be a part of this sort of intensive. So it will be more like a work study, work group for the next 4 months as we move that and put that into what we do as a school. And so I think that will be very beneficial. Hopefully we'll see outreach in that with our recruitment and our enrollment efforts as well. Moving on, I have the principals put together their elementary and high school curriculum guides, and they're not included here, but they are on our website, and you can link on that if you have that access. But they've done a good job where they've lined out K-12, the pacing guides for the subject matters. And we haven't had that concise reporting ever. And so what that tells any parent that chooses to go to that is what the standards are that they're looking at and how each grade level and subject area are addressing those. That's kind of a fluid document, but these parts is the steady part of what the foundational part of their classes are in. And if you want to review that and talk about it next time, we're happy to do that. But I did upload that onto our webpage today so parents can access that. Rachel is going to talk a little bit. Last time we met, we talked about sort of elementary math, and we will continue to talk about that because that's an area of growth that we have. So I've asked Rachel to come forward and kind of present some strategies that they're working on currently and to give you a little insight on how that's going.
Okay, so we've had a lot going on in all of our subjects, but definitely math. We have a focus for CFAs and our PLCs. I know we've talked about this before, but all of our teachers are writing, giving, analyzing data for multiple common formative assessments. And this is just a little screenshot. They have a giant data sheet that they use where they track all the information for students. And they also have their Atlas pieces in this data so that they can really see if students are on track or if they're starting to fall. And then they can group students into groups where they can work on skill-alike groups, and they can plan instruction also based on that data. They discuss this weekly in PLCs. They're somewhere in the process at every point during their PLC process. And then the next page is just some different, well, I just took little snippets and screenshots from our different grades. A lot of them have some really great color coding so they can really see just at a glance how their kids are doing generally. And it can also really point out the kids that need a lot of extra help. We also have started to look at the value-added data study. This was put out by the ADE, and they have it for each class individually, as long as they have growth scores. Certain classes don't have those. But this shows how much students met their expected growth. 0 would be they met it exactly, and then above that is they went above their expected, and below is of course below their expected, and then there's also an achievement. So we have that available. We started talking about it as a leadership team, but we haven't yet given those to teachers because really we only have a couple for a couple teachers, because if they change grades or if they're in a non-tested area, then it gets a little more complicated to look at that data. So I know at one point I talked about the implementation dip because we are very deep in learning artful learning and also in implementing artful learning, and it is a huge undertaking. And I spoke at some point about the implementation dip. And so I just wanted to kind of hopefully this is where we are. Even though our data went down, I believe that we're in the process of moving up. This does show the data between the ACT Aspire and then the Atlas that we took last year. I'm not sure what it'll look like this year because the Atlas is still a moving target and we're not sure exactly what the data will end up looking like. However, we do have some data highlights. We're almost finished. We have one student who has not finished their Atlas interim because they've not been at school. But we have some highlights. At our staff meeting last week, our teachers looked at their data and they shared some highlights. They put them on Post-it notes. And these were a couple of those. In 4th grade math, 9 students moved out of level 1. So that's a great, level 1 is our lowest level. That's a limited understanding. And also when we get points from the state and grades from the state, that's our section that we get 0 points for. 5th grade had positive growth in all of their subjects. So every single subject they were moving up, they shared that. And our guiding coalition, we looked at percentages overall as an entire school, because our guiding coalition is like our PLC, but for the whole school. So instead of just looking at a grade of kids, we're looking at everybody. We found that 10% of students overall moved out of level 1 in math, which is wonderful. That's higher than our growth and movement from ELA. And then our percentage of number 4s is 76% higher in the winter than it was in the fall. So we had a growth. And I expect to continue to see that growth. So our math is still not where we want it to be, but we are moving in the right direction. We also are doing a lot of focusing on PD and support for teachers. We had an October PD for our teachers. It was completely voluntary because it happened off of contract time during fall intercession. And we had quite a few teachers that chose to come from all the way from 2nd grade to 6th grade attended. We looked at some articles. We looked at some little pieces that we can add to instruction to make it more engaging, to go deeper with the math. And we did a lot of interactive work. Megan Rosanna was completing her coaching cycles with teachers. She had different things on instruction, classroom management, any areas of improvement that the teachers themselves proposed. And all teachers will have at least one coaching cycle completed by the end of the year. And then what we have finally been able to get started and we're excited about is Kelly Swofford. He's a math coach with the Bailey Education Group. He most recently was in Eureka Springs last year as a 5th grade math and science teacher, but before that he was an administrator in an elementary school for 15 years. And then before that he was a elementary teacher for 15 years and he ended up focusing on math. So he came and visited with me. We had a lot of talk and looking at data and conversations about what our needs are. And then he went and spent about 30 minutes to 40 minutes in every single one of our math classrooms to observe. And then we came and got back together and set some goals and set some plans together. And he will be here every Tuesday after spring break all day with our teachers, coaching, co-planning, co-teaching, observing. And then that will also continue through next year. He also will be a part of some of our PDs. He can help provide PD and support PD on our days where we do not have children. So. We also just have continued monitoring. I wrote this before we took when this was for the February meeting, but we have continued CFA planning. We're giving it, we're analyzing it, and then we're just our continued data from our Atlas tests. Any questions?
I would like to recognize the high school with their incredible Atlas score growth awards. Not only did the Office of Education Policy reach out and say, Arkansas has not been on the books, meaning in that top category for over 6 years. So the fact that we are now exceeding the entire state in growth performance on Atlas, exceeding in math, it just is a testament to the hard work and also the gratitude for the board as we move through staff changes and we begin to redirect things and just the patience with that, because it's beginning to make some big differences. So that was a huge kudos to the administrators, the team, and we're going to celebrate once they kind of figure out what they want to do. But that's a tremendous coup for us. And we're going to put some banners and some window things on in celebration of that as well.
So, great job, guys.
Good.
Yes.
The, I've submitted to you, is the grant data in here? I wanted to kind of give a little insight onto some of the grants that we have been submitting as a staff. And I've written, some of the staff have written, and you should have that. Yeah, there's it. So it gives you a little idea kind of behind the scenes of what we're bringing in for the school district. So the top part, for the most part, are grants that I've written at almost 2 million. And then we're coming down here with in progress grants that I have. We've got some from child that are already out. I got word today that our recent Blue and You grant for mental health was received. So that's $5,000 we'll put towards some trauma training for our 7th and 8th grade students, and some resources for a parent night to bring parents in and kind of educate them about sort of strategies. And then we've got some others in the works. And then on the next page are some that Aaron has worked on. And I asked specifically for 2021 until now. And so he's showing some work that he's done. And there is another, did we make a copy for the board for the other? You passed it out? Okay, so then this is, and we put this in here because it's got names of individuals and we weren't sure if they wanted that public. So I just put that as a copy to the board. So we're also doing a much better job tracking our donations and really following back up. So I've now got a different protocol on how that works. So the letter of thanks will come from me in my office versus the teacher that's sort of actually acquiring that. So we follow up with that and are able to actually then add these individuals to a potential donor list and kind of keep in contact with these people. But this is by no means everything, but from what we were able to put together, because Aaron has had that in his area of responsibility. And so I wanted to make sure we have a list.
For the grants, do we have any grants that we anticipate being impacted by the kerfuffle with the Department of Education?
Unfortunately, I've had a pause on a NEA, National Endowment of the Arts grant, and it was supposed to be due in February and they pushed the deadline back and now it's sort of on pause. And so I don't see that progressing a whole lot. But I'll continue. You know, there are other avenues. Part of the workshop I was at this last week was on finding funders and going through different channels to how to locate that based on your sort of identified needs. And sort of the lens that I'm going through now is not only our arts programming, but our mental health needs, some of our curricular trainings, some, social, emotional, all other things besides just arts education. So looking at all kind of areas that we could expand in those. Moving, if I'm going too fast, you guys stop me. Moving right along into what we've got labeled as March new business. I'm bringing forth for vote and approval are some policy changes to our handbook. 9.3, we talked about previously, really securing that language in there about adult interaction, student interaction, not only as a safeguard for students, but also for our staff. So I've redlined additional wordage. The principals and I looked at this, trying to make sure that we're hitting all the areas that have any gray area to be misinterpreted. So once this is approved, if there are no concerns, then I will be talking to staff about this next Friday. So next Friday, we have an early release day because we're bringing in all the trainers from CFAC. And this will be part of that conversation, is how we're really rethinking spaces and involvement with students through a different lens, and what that looks like in their physical spaces, but also in their social media spaces outside of school, their interactions with students, and how to really set a firm role as they're the professional, not the friend.
So, we have comments, thoughts on any of this policy?
Did
revisions?
legal look at this to see if there was nothing that could be?
I did not share it with legal. I don't anticipate, but I'm happy to run that through him. I think we as
I
a,
don't think we should. I mean, I'm just asking, not suggesting.
oh, no, we did not. A lot of the sort of the red line parts are more clarifications in my mind. More clarifications being very specific. But I'm happy to, if that's something that you'd like, I can run that through. As a district, you guys vote on policy, and what we're trying to navigate is preventative action moving forward.
I only ask because I don't want to have policy that isn't in line with Arkansas state law in some way. That's my only concern. I've seen the red and I love that it is further clarification. I mean, I like the policy. I just don't know that, I'm a little worried that we might do something we shouldn't.
I am happy to run that through. And if you want to wait to vote, you can. I really honestly think the sooner the better that we get this clear and sort of set, but what we can do is vote based on that opinion, or just approved and then edit based on his, I mean, the sooner we can get this set and in our operational policy, I think the better.
I'm good to approve provisionally, just
Okay.
assuming you get comments after
You guys have any?
personal
Any thoughts?
opinion.
The only question I had was in the, when a parent or a staff person also has a student concurrently here. When I think it references like birthday parties and things like that. And this, I don't necessarily think has to be policy, but maybe the recommendation is like the non-school adult sends invites, because I don't tend to use my work email for personal things. And so just to avoid any of that, maybe an adult in the house or.
We can make that clarification, that's fine, no big deal.
Then they should probably come talk to one of their administrators.
My question was, what if they don't have another adult in the house?
I think like any great ethical thing, they should, if they let you know ahead of time, I'm having a birthday party, here are the kids I'm inviting, I have to do it from this email, then you guys get to have a conversation about what that looks like, and at least no one's surprised.
I do think you are correct, the fact that it should not come from a work email, because that gives a whole different sort of context to the email.
Yes.
But I do think also a conversation with the administrator, just heads up, this is what it is. I'm going to communicate from a personal email as a mother, not a teacher. And this is how, it's a tricky space to navigate when you're a parent and a teacher at the same time. That's one of the benefits of being a teacher, is you can kind of be in the same space as your kids, but it is tricky when you have those situations, birthdays and celebrations. I'm happy to write that in.
So I guess, is it allowable for us to approve this as long as it passes legal? Okay. Anybody have any other thoughts, questions, or additions? Can I get a motion to approve?
I move that we approve it provisionally with pending legal review.
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
The next addition for your consideration is some wording that we have not had, but we're in need of. in the vein of a teacher, parent working alongside their children at a school setting, what those boundaries should be. It's not, you don't see them crossed as much in high school because there's just a lot going on. There is, but we do need to be very clear both at elementary and high school of what that looks like. And so we don't, we are guiding children consistently the same way and through the right individuals. And that does not also impact the employee's job responsibilities, because that's when we begin to jeopardize school safety and just our overall operating expectations when we are not focused on our role as the employee versus the parent.
I feel like this gets a little sticky if it's a single parent. And, you know, they're in the same school and their child is having an issue and there needs to be, I could see some situations where
They don't have a.
it's gonna be unavoidable for the teacher who's the parent to end up needing to leave their classroom at least temporarily to manage a situation because there's not an alternative.
Mhm.
So I guess I would think we need to think through how we're gonna deal with that, you know? If you have a special needs kid and they're melting down and you need to go and help and nobody else can fulfill that role, it seems, I guess, laborious to say you're gonna have to take a PTO day to spend 30 minutes calming your child. And so I don't know a better way to word it, other than maybe to put some verbiage in, you know, about flexibility, you know, at the, I guess, based on the administrator's, you know, discretion. Thank you for the word. I couldn't come up with it. Thank you.
We can definitely go back in and add that. I think
Yeah.
the vision of this is there becomes a moment that you have to call someone in to relieve your class, and go home. Or go someplace else because there are 25 kids in that classroom, they're needing some sort of supervision.
Right, and it's a legit concern.
I think the same as someone who's, even if your child wasn't there, right? If your child's melting down at a different school or at a different campus, the same protocol is, if it's a 10-minute, I just need to calm you down on the phone. I think that probably happens regularly enough that it doesn't have to be addressed specifically. But I agree that if it's to the point where you need to go home and take care of something, or it can't be done at work, or it's in conflict, then the same as if your child was throwing up, you just have to take the time and step away, through the formal process. Because then I could see where if your child's not there and you get 30 or 45 minutes to deal with your small person, but someone whose child is somewhere else doesn't have that same luxury because they're not the person, I think that creates some inequity among the teaching staff.
I think we have to be careful with, I mean, I understand a plight of a single parent, but if my child were in a school with me and something were happening, I wouldn't necessarily say, I can't help you, child. Let's get your dad here. It just doesn't. So if we're going to allow, some people to help, to sort of like cross the line, then I think you have to. So I think there just has to be a policy in place, even though it would hurt me. I think it really is a black or white thing, although I do know that I do understand it. But as a person who has a two-parent household, I would still, if your child is in need, you still want to give them that attention.
It is delicate.
Yes.
And we don't have real abusers of this, but we also don't have it in written policy. So as we see some situations beginning to kind of gear towards some of these, we want to be able to say, this is what the expectations are. And, but I agree that there hopefully is a little give and take, that there is an available staff member that can assist, but there are sometimes there just are not. And at the elementary, they are really doing diligence at both campuses on not using subs and really trying to fill gaps internally so we can save on our bottom line. And that is a tremendous outreach and effort on their parts. So there's not a lot of availability to step in. But at the same time, I feel both campuses are filled with very compassionate teachers that would do whatever they could to the best of their abilities to help their colleagues. We just want to support the principals in knowing when to begin to discipline someone when they're beginning to abuse the system and abuse their colleagues.
And I think even like the part about the morning pieces also helps other students see everyone's child is getting treated just like me. I don't get to have this or do this. All of us are doing whatever the morning routine is and the afternoon routine, which I think is important for them to see.
Were we able to pull an example of a similar policy from another district? Because I've never seen this.
There's not a lot of these that exist.
Yes, that's why I'm like, I've
Very
never seen this
unusual.
before.
But a lot of schools and specific schools that I've worked in that I have had my own child in, the expectation is there's no favoritism. There's zero. And so it's so cut and dry. There's not any of this. It's just, it is that way. So I think we're trying to meet our staff halfway with we want them to bring their kids there. It makes them happier. They are happy to come to work. They're safe around their kids. It's a perk of being a teacher. One of the few, but it's a perk. And so, but we can definitely add in flexibility. I completely full faith trust our administrators. They're going to offer that anyway.
I mean, so maybe we don't need verbiage, but just, I guess, acknowledgement.
It's important that everyone works together because everyone will have a crisis at some point with their children. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And everyone needs to be able to help each other out, but not to the detriment of the individuals that you are required to keep safe.
I feel like the ethical responsibilities of a teacher sort of cover that. And when you sort of pigeonhole us into, okay, your children can't ever, this, any other, but then we know but we establish this policy knowing that there's going to be areas that we're going to make exceptions, then I think we set ourselves up for like some legal risk. And some people being able to, there's either a black and white line where no one crosses it, or we, respect the teachers, like they're going to be ethical. They're going to always, care for the children in front of them and know when to sort of raise their hand and say, I need to be getting coverage or leave early to take care of my kid. But I do think that setting up a policy that we know is going to be up to someone's opinion on whether or not it's honored is just sort of putting us in a very vulnerable position. And I'm not saying they would not make the absolute right choice in that wouldn't, but from the person who does not get it, or just anyone can say anything, I don't like establishing a policy that we know is going to be constantly like broken or is not really, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, let's just not have a policy then and somehow, firm up like the teacher's responsibilities in terms of your priority is always the children that you're responsible for, they're on your role during it, those things. And then that sort of covers it. Because if I had my child in front of me and 24 kids in front of me, I am not responsible for those 24 kids. But if we say that, the child can't come in the room if forgot their lunch or something, whatever the things that teachers' kids needs, but one is allowed to cross, it just seems like it's going to be a line that's always crossed. And someone can say, hey, that's not fair because they're crossing it.
I do and I mean, we can always revisit, but the way that the intentionality of this is that the students in crisis or students that feel like they're in crisis go through the proper protocol, not run to mom or dad's room immediately and bypass the counselor, the administrator, or the, you know, their own classroom teacher. So instances where they're given direction and they're going from a teacher and they're running out going to their mom, those are the things we're trying to prevent here as a parent helping navigate their kid versus that kid all of a sudden getting a discipline situation and then it becoming a very kind of combative situation between teachers.
What does Rachel think? What do you think of this policy?
I have suggested the policy. I have 2 children at the elementary school and, I mean, my kid forgets their snack, they're gonna remember it the next day. I mean, but I'm pretty harsh on my kids. Like I expect them to have the exact same rules. At 7:30, they're out of my office and they go to where they're expected to go. I feel really strongly about that because, if my kids are running around in the office in the morning, then other kids are gonna wanna come in and why can't they come in and hang out? If my kids come to eat lunch with me every day, it's not necessarily during my lunchtime and then I'm not working during that time. We also, to what you were talking about earlier with parents, if a kid's in crisis, what we've seen a couple of times is their parent sees them. So they come over and the crisis takes so much longer to manage. If we need the parent, we always get them just like any kid. If I have a kid crying, you know, like just having a huge meltdown for 45 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever it is for that individual kid, we call the parents. And we would do the same for our teachers. And if we called them and they needed to go, we would cover them just like people would for someone at their own school. I just would like, I mean, I asked for it because I want it just to be crystal clear about, and really I feel like it's restating that the rules that we ask all the other kids to follow apply to your kids. The rules that we ask for all the other teachers to follow also apply to you. Like just real clear, because I don't know. I feel like we have the gray area a lot right now. And I don't want for there to be any possibility for favoritism of a teacher's kid over someone else's kid, because that's not okay. So, and I'll tell you, like when my kid gets disciplined, they go straight to McGar. We've even called my husband to come pick one up once. So, told him his kid was go home for the day. He got some looks from his coworkers. Yeah, but we, anyway, I just feel really strongly about it for my kids. And I feel like it should be important for other people's kids because the idea of a parent walking in and seeing my kid being a hooligan and not being addressed, but I called them because their kid was being a hooligan is not okay. I mean, the kids get benefits before and after school.
And
They get to run around.
I also, just to add, I want to make sure we're protecting all of our students and their privacy as well. And I've had 2 of my kids in my building before. When I was an interventionist, I taught in the same junior high school with my son. And he was not allowed in my room when I had groups because those kids are already trying to be courageous and struggling they were struggling with, and the last thing they needed is some other student that they were not part of the culture that we had built in that room to come in and see what they were working on. So he knew if my door was shut, didn't matter if he needed a snack or if he wanted to tell me that we had band practice or whatever, he had to wait. And that's what I also want for some of our students. I think there's been a couple of times where that has not taken place. And I'm just thinking about the other students in the building and just wanting to protect them and their privacy and the vulnerability that they have to bring to the classroom.
We address issues, but it's nice to have some policy to make it just really crystal clear that it's not my opinion that you can't have your kid into your class during lunch. It's like, this is what we do as a school. That was my hope. But I mean, we have hearts, but we also have other parents that we have some kids that do not have teachers at the school and their kid starts melting down and we know to call that parent and their kid needs a pep talk on the phone or, we set up meetings and do all those things. And if a teacher needs to have a meeting during their planning period with us about their child, then we can do that just like we would do it for a parent outside of the school if they needed a specific time.
Agree.
I do agree with the policy. I've had one experience as an elementary principal where one of our paraprofessionals had a child in the school that the child had some emotional struggles. And so it became a self-perpetuating thing where that child always wanted the mom to come to them. And it just became a big issue. I like having a clear-cut policy. I can also see as we are trying to tighten down at the high school, not having individual students in your room at lunch or even twos. I've told the high school staff three kids, that's your number if you're alone with them in a room. I feel like this would also help us just to make sure that we're not just talking about other people's kids, we're talking about yours as well. I like clear cut. I don't like to paint us into a corner, and you have to be careful, to be careful to have at least a little bit of flexibility. But I do know of a situation, it's more common in the elementary school. And so my bigger concern was just from that experience where a kid melted down at the first 9 weeks of school almost every day. And we had to just wean that away to where we would no longer allow mom to come and help us at all, because that's what it took to break the cycle. And it does become a cycle when there's separation anxiety. And that's a lot of what we were experiencing. I do like the policy, but I also understand wanting to make sure that you're flexible enough to not be, painted in a corner in every single situation. I think a lot of it for me feels like common sense, but that does not work everywhere. And we have to have clear expectations, and I think this gives us that.
I think we need this policy. I think that enforcement's up to your administrators ultimately, right? And they have hearts. But I think we got to address Marissa's concern too, right? If you have too much abuse or too lax on the other side, inequity created. So I don't know how we address Marissa's concern, but I think we need this policy.
And I think we're just kind of focusing right now on the teacher role, but there are other roles that this is a lot more gray in. So when you're not in a classroom with kids, but when you're a para, or you do this floater position, and so then there's very gray when that is someone that could literally have their kid with them next to them all day long and still sort of do their job. And so I think the more clear we are, the more everyone's going to know from the get-go what the expectation is. And we're not all of a sudden just teachers feel like we're picking on individual ones. It's set.
Marissa, is there anything you think needs to be added or subtracted to make this more acceptable?
No, it's either honored or it's not, in my opinion. It's like
So you're more concerned about implementation
I
than
am.
any of the verbiage?
yes, the
Okay.
legal concerns if it's not.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess since we've heard from the bosses of the schools regarding their concerns, do you guys want to go ahead and approve it? Do you want to bring it back? So who wants to make a motion? Anybody want a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I am opposed.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. All right.
We have no other discussions since this was posted. And
Do we need to go over this marketing plan?
I wanted to show you that, bringing that up. It wasn't.
And March financials.
Thank you. I wanted to give you a little insight as to kind of the layered approach, I can't find mine, of what I'm working on with our marketing. And I'll just go with it. So the strategy is really sort of across the board, and across the board, using the resources we have, but then also use a lot of strategies that we're getting through the Charter Seed Growth Fund. Right now, I've got a contract with Brand Catalyst, and so we're using the funds that we were given through Charter Seed to get us ready to scale for growth. And we know that student enrollment is essential for that part. So with the contract with Brand Catalyst, they're looking at They came out, contracted, did the photography, the videography. They're updating and helping assist the website. They're gonna do some pixels on our Google search. So when you search something, the school will pop up to the top. And they're doing some of this digital campaign. We talked a little bit about the accelerator cohort and looking through and developing pitch decks and advocacy issues and how we sort of promote our school. The next step, and I met with them yesterday, is we've gotten connected with a group called Bright Beam that's going to actually pitch some media for us to highlight some things that we do that are unique, like the gallery, like some of the things that we don't see in other schools that we have unique. They're going to put together sort of a media kit and send it out and try to get some media on that, as well as giving me some opportunities or getting me connected with the people that I can write some op-eds, like in the 74 or in some other sort of educational journals that we can talk about our school and sort of self-promote that way. They're also going to help us promote the NAMS, upcoming NAMS conference. So this is just the beginning, but a lot is happening along the lines of how we're looking at our communication messages. The principals and I also met today, as well as Pam, talking about how we're managing our prospective families, like the outreach that we're doing and the intentional way that we're going to be really capturing their information from shadows or from school tours, reaching back out and showing up at some more community events in a real scheduled way. And really working the community in person, but also really encouraging that we follow up with all of the pieces that we haven't been doing that with. So following up with new families as they enroll in the middle of the year, getting that communication started, really talking and communicating with prospective families that haven't committed yet, like we talked about a minute ago on the lottery, calling them and kind of inviting them back out to do another tour and answer more specific questions, and really intentionally thinking of how we capture and maintain that enrollment, so we can start off next year knowing that we'll have a percentage that don't show, but how do we compensate for and make sure we're full. We're doing some really great and innovative signage and marketing as far as in the building for the middle school, and really designating that space off so we show parents that it's a real segregated space, and we're going to label it, we're going to call it the middle, and give arrows and sign little graphics. So we're directing students not only towards the middle school ring, but just giving more directional signs in here as well to make it more user-friendly for new families, so they can kind of see and feel like they have that capacity to navigate, as a new person here. So all of these things, I think, are going to definitely help us out, and I'll continue to keep you updated.
And then I guess we need to approve March financials. Does anyone have any concerns? All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Yeah, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I just remembered that we never invited any comments from the public. Did we have any?
We did not.
Okay, perfect. What are we missing? Anything? Over? Do we have a need to go?
Unless you guys do. It's a play practice performance, so practicing.
Okay, because
You think you were hearing from us? It's gonna be great.
Sounds like it.
Sorry.
No, I was trying to think of.
Anything you want to ask about?
5 minutes.
Sure.
Sorry.
For the record, those are not our kids, just saying.
Okay.